gorgeous soul friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Hannah. Welcome to my channel, and it's such an honor to be a part of your wondrous earth experience today. So we're going to be discussing magic, witchcraft, the stigma behind these labels, and the practicality of real life magic, which is much more mundane than popular media has portrayed. I want to first tackle two polarized views on this subject so that we can navigate the middle way with an open mind and a balanced understanding. People typically approach this topic with either fear or ridicule. First, you have the fear outlook, which is predominantly propagated by fundamentalist Abrahamism, which is a result of a millennia of crafting misunderstanding in an attempt to attain control. All while repackaging these same practices and disguising them as religious ritual. So you really can't sit here and tell me that consuming the body and blood of Christ isn't ritual magic, or that prayer is somehow different from incantation. A lot of people get really caught up in the dogma and the labels of a religion that they lack the nuance to understand that it all ties back to one common source. It's not really their fault though. They're merely byproducts of generations upon generations who have been spoon-fed the same dogma for centuries. I mean, think about it. Most of the Western world couldn't even read or write until the Industrial Revolution, when basic education started to become more widespread. Before then, most people sought out the medium of a priest or a religious leader for their connection to the divine. Freedom of thought is a relatively new phenomena. I mean, I would say that we didn't have that sense of autonomy until about 50 to 100 years ago. And hell, I mean, collectively, many people are still working to find that now. For a long time, it was incredibly taboo to have your own thoughts and feelings about theological subjects. And from about 1400 to 1775, you couldn't even whisper of alternative theology without being tortured or killed. So what is the best way to control a populace? Fear. I would say that the programming is so deep-rooted that a lot of people still have hints of that fear stored within their DNA, passed down from their ancestors who lived during the Inquisition. Trauma is inherited. People still hold on to trauma from these darker periods of humanity where we did god-awful things to each other. On the other end of the spectrum, you have ridicule, which is predominantly propagated within academic circles. And this view is a result of the pendulum swinging out of superstitious extremism into anti-spiritualism, which in a way has turned science into its own religion. The flaw in this way of thinking is that science itself is a branch of magic. Pharmaceuticals are just modern-day potions. And look at the wonders that are created out of chemical reactions. Latin is the primary language used for labeling, the same language that's used in depictions of witchcraft in media. There's magic all around us, but we now label it as chemistry, physics, and biology. Language changes over the course of human evolution. So this is really just a new layer of understanding for timeless phenomena. There's nothing wrong with using scientific labels or religious labels, so long as a person has the understanding that it's all merely semantics and connects back to the same thing. So what is magic? Magic is the act of manipulating. And I first want to go into the word manipulation because it has a bad rep. A lot of people typically associate it with something negative, but to manipulate simply means to alter, to change. For good or for bad, magic is the act of altering the physical reality through the use of imagination paired with focus and intention. Everyone is a magician. I want to start by saying that. Every single person on earth has the gift of magic within them. Though there are some people who display more of an affinity to magic, they have more of a natural ability to practice it, they feel more connected to it naturally. And this is likely because they've practiced in other lifetimes, they've carried that knowledge over with them, even if they may not be aware of it. This fundamental formula of imagination plus intention plus focus can be layered upon, but it doesn't need to be. Okay, so your candles, your oils, your crystals, all of that stuff isn't necessary. Rather, it adds material recognition to an ability that is ever present within you. So there's a lot of manifestation teachers who kind of condemn the use of external tools like crystals and herbs and candles. I don't really resonate with that. I don't think it's a bad thing to use these things. I just think it's not necessary. And I think a lot of people fall into the thinking that they need these things in order to create, that they need these things in order to materialize experience. But they don't. These external tools aren't doing anything for you. Rather, you give them the power with your own consciousness, with your own sense of awareness. You are the magic. Ritualism itself is woven into the fabric of the human spirit. People have been practicing rituals for as long as humans have been around. And I think there's a reason for that. I think there's something very special to practicing some sort of ritual. And ritual looks different for everyone. Not everybody feels called to have the altar with the candles and the incense. Some people ritualistically go for runs as a way to honor their body's function and mobility. Some people feel called to pray by their bedside. Some people spend regular time in nature. It looks different for everybody. There's no right or wrong way to partake in ritual. It's really just a practice that is done regularly and consistently as a way to honor yourself, or to create space with a specific intention. So let's get into light and dark magic. What defines light and dark magic? Because this is a topic in a way for its own video. And I've discussed it a little bit before on my channel, but I want to take it a little bit deeper because it's incredibly misunderstood. This subject is something that has a lot of different opinions, but light and dark magic doesn't always directly equate to good or bad. Light magic involves service to others and altruism, while dark magic involves strict service to self, sometimes at the expense of other life forms. A true master finds harmony within this yin and yang, and a true master will never need to harm another living being or themselves in order to be successful with magic. So you see in a lot of these darker occult rituals, there's things like sacrifice or self-harm that a person does in ritual. And when somebody does this, they open themselves up to forces that feed upon that suffering, and they will propagate suffering within that practitioner's life as sustenance. This is typically the case with demonic possession. People meddle with forces that they don't fully understand, and they pay the price. So this isn't to say that you need to fear any of this stuff, but there is a reasonable and respectable way to approach this work so that you can safely get the most out of it. At the end of the day, magic is a tightrope walk. There is a healthy element of sacrifice that's present within practical magic, but it's not literal sacrifice. It's more metaphorical in the sense of sacrificing your lack mindset in order to make space for abundance. Sacrificing your need to complain about everything that dissatisfies you so that you can make space for satisfaction, or sacrificing a toxic attachment to a person or a thing to make space for growth. So literalism has tarnished the reputation of magic. It's highly symbolic. And a lot of people take things very literally, things like sacrifice and other aspects of magic, and it's really not literal in most cases. Especially like you see this in dream interpretation too. A lot of people take dreams literally when dreams are highly symbolic. Same goes for tarot reading. You know, a lot of people will read the tarot cards and they take the literal interpretation of the imagery on the card as opposed to reading into the symbology of what the imagery means. On the flip side, extreme altruism is just as destructive as extreme selfishness. So there is an unhealthy element of practicing light magic as well. There's this ego trap of thinking that it's morally superior to like only manifest for others, and that if you want to manifest things for yourself, you're somehow less of a person, which is just totally untrue. Okay, like yes, we are here to be of service to each other and to be good to one another, but we're also here to cultivate experiences for the self. So it's really about finding harmony between these two things and not allowing one to take precedence over the other. A true master of the craft observes and works with the forces of nature rather than trying to bend nature to their will. And we've seen this with the scientific path and innovation at the expense of our environment. This is the difference between magic and sorcery. Magic works directly with nature's laws, while sorcery seeks to dominate them. Most people are practicing magic every single day and don't even know it. When you set goals for yourself and commit to those goals, magic. When you create a body of art that moves people, magic. When you happen to have the right words to say to uplift or inspire someone in your life, magic. We need to distinguish between magic and witchcraft because magic is timeless and worldwide, whereas witchcraft is limited to approximately 3 centuries, from 1450 to 1750, and pretty much encapsulated anything that went against the dogma of the church. Originally, witches were medicine women who lived on the outskirts of towns and primarily kept to themselves, providing ailment to the sick when needed. But when the plague hit in the 1300s, the superstitious townsfolk often made these women scapegoats due to their introverted nature. This was exacerbated in 1486 when Heinrich Kramer produced Malleus Maleficarum, which translates to Hammer of Witches. It was perhaps the most sinister body of work ever produced on witches. It combined previous folklore about black magic with church dogma on heresy. It completely opened up the floodgates of inquisitional hysteria. It published 13 editions over the course of the next 40 years, and then had another 16 editions published over the 95 years after. It is essentially the book responsible for the popularization of witch trials, which over the course of 3 centuries legalized the torture and murder of over 200,000 individuals. I say murder because most of these people were innocent, everyday people who were either accused out of spite or because they had something like land that could be confiscated and divided up for profit after death. So the witch trials for a very long time was a massive business that accrued a great deal of profit for churches, inquisitors, and governing bodies. Many of the accusations actually came from children and teenagers, some of whom even admitted to falsifying accusations later on after they realized that their seemingly harmless pranks led to people being killed or crippled. Some children also admitted to being coerced by priests who used the witch trials and the children's accusations to propel their career forward. They gained status and reputation from how many witches they were able to find and execute. It was pretty much set up so that for a 300-year span in Europe and the colonies, if you were accused of being a witch, there was basically no way of fighting it. It was a death sentence. Witchcraft was regarded as an exceptional crime, because it was spiritual and not physical. It couldn't be proved by ordinary rules of evidence, so all legal procedures were superseded. It was extremely rare to clear up a witch accusation. There were a couple of reported occasions where the accused rallied up enough community support to clear their name, but this seldom happened. Usually people were afraid to defend the accused out of fear that they themselves might be accused as an accomplice. This is mostly what torture was used for, to gather up more names of more people that could be rounded up and continue the cycle. A lot of people were eventually broken by the torture and would just make stuff up, even if they were innocent. It was truly one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't scenarios, because regardless of whether or not you gave them the info they were looking for, you were going to get executed. Divination has always gone hand in hand with this subject, although fortune tellers were typically let off a lot easier than those who were accused of being full-blown witches. Divination is the practice of seeking knowledge of the future through supernatural means. Cartomancy is a popular form of divination. Many of you have found my channel through cartomancy, my tarot readings, which I don't do anymore because it's super draining. Reading for hundreds or thousands of people at a time is incredibly draining, so that's why I don't do it anymore. I do still offer personal readings for those who are interested, but I don't do it widespread anymore because it's just a lot. I found I was very depressed and was always tired and drained when I was doing it. I much prefer to make educational content like this or subliminal tapes. It takes a lot less out of me, and if anything, really fuels my spirit. Other popular forms of divination include astrology, which uses the transitions of the celestial bodies, pyromancy, which uses fire, bibliomancy, which uses passages randomly chosen in books, especially the Bible, tasseomancy, which uses tea leaves, botanomancy, which uses herbs, and chiromancy, which is palmistry. I've talked about my opinion on divination before. I believe it's a useful tool for self-awareness and development, but ultimately, the future is crafted by your thoughts, beliefs, and actions in the current moment. We exist in a multiverse, and everyone's choices determine their life path, regardless of whether those choices are conscious or unconscious. The wise man rules his stars. The fool is ruled by them. When you use divination as a tool for telling the future, you are robbing yourself of a great gift bestowed upon you, the gift of your will, your gift of magic. A lot of people don't realize that they're unknowingly leaving their fate in the hands of strangers on the internet when they rely on predictions to tell them what's happening in their life. At the end of the day, witch is just a label for someone who is able to manipulate matter with their intention. Most modern day witches are just everyday folk who have maintained their connection to nature in a world that is rapidly disconnecting from it. Magic and witchcraft are very practical and prevalent, more than people realize. We've been taught to see magic as this fantastical, over-the-top thing when it's working in our life every single day, often right under our noses. Magic is the coincidences in life. It's the happenstance occurrences, intricately organized chaos that appears random at first glance, but connected when given the pause and presence to observe. Magic is everywhere. But that is the conclusion of this video, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in and connecting with me today. I just wanted to talk about this for spooky season because to me, it's quite spooky that humans can be so awful to each other. But ultimately, we are working towards a greater future and a better world through this collective wisdom and tapping into this awareness with an open heart and an open mind. So I hope that you'll share this video with people who are interested in this subject. But other than that, we'll see each other soon, and I love you so much. Have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.